Having gone over the guides, which are more or less like the basic building blocks of hair, we're going to take a look at the Hairs tab now. And this is where we're going to be able to control at least part of our actual hair. And that part is going to be the actual strands of hair that appear at render time. So you can't see them right now in the viewport, and that's something that we can fix with a few options. But when we click on render, that's when we're going to actually see the hair. And if we move this around, you can get a better look at the hair that we're seeing. Now at the moment, with no lights and no actual adjustments to the material or anything like that, it's not the prettiest looking thing, but that's not what we're looking for right now. Just like with the Guides tab, we had control over the count for the hairs, and this is going to be the total number of strands that will be placed over your surface. The other option that we have is segments. And segments are going to control the number of divisions along that strand. So if you have hair that's curly or needs a lot of fine definition because it is maybe frizzy or something like that, you're going to need to have a lot of segments. Otherwise, you'll start to see the individual line segments of the hair strand. The one thing to note here is the more segments that you do have, it is going to increase your render time. So it's all about finding a good balance to use for your specific scene. So just as a quick example, we can take the hair count and set this to something like 250. You'll see that the number of guides on our object does not change at all. But if we render, there are significantly less hairs. If we set the count up to something higher, like say 300,000, once again, the number of guides do not change. And if we click on render, you'll see that it takes a little bit longer to prepare the hair. And it's just calculating all of those 300,000 hairs and trying to space them out between all these guides here. Now the result is something that's actually quite dense and still didn't take that long, a whole 16 seconds here. And it almost looks like we have solid geometry rather than individual strands of hair, but that's what we're actually seeing. I did mention that the segments can change your render time, so we can go ahead and just check out the exact difference here. We can say set this to 6 segments instead, and try rendering again. At this point, it does have to go through and prepare the hair, so I'll just cut back to when it's rendered. So that finished rendering, and now we have a time of 14 seconds. If we take the segments and set this to something like 50, and then click render again, I'll get back to you. Okay, so that's finally finished rendering with 50 segments, and in this particular case you don't see the difference right off the bat, and you probably won't until we actually get into styling the hair. But the one thing that has really changed here is the render time, which is now sitting at 25 seconds.